And now I work about 20, 25 hours, depending on the week. There's a season for everything. But the more I work, the less effective I become.
There's nothing a business owner is more afraid of than doing nothing. Please help me welcome Christopher Wick to our powerful conversation, to our powerful show. A bit about Christopher. He is a heart-centered entrepreneur, mentor, speaker, and investor. His companies have won over 14 awards and have been featured by Huffington Post, ABC, NBC, and Wall Street Select. Currently, Christopher is the chairman of Say Yes Enterprises, a Texas-based investment management company that acquires, builds, and sells companies. And his big why is helping people thrive in their companies and grow their profits, thereby serving their teams, families, and communities at a higher level. In a nutshell, Chris is also a freedom builder, and I love that he's here in the Real Freedom Elevator podcast, and he helps you in the beginning clean up your time, optimize your time, and then eventually, if you want to, prepare for selling the business if that's on the table. Christopher, big welcome.
Thank you very much for having me today, my friend. Glad to be here with you.
Beautiful. I was jokingly, what's the word when you notice that? I said I was expecting a black suit and black tie from John Wick's brother, but I love that you're more chill than your movie counterpart, your movie brother.
For sure, for sure.
Beautiful. But jokes aside, tell us a bit about you, Christopher. What's your origin story? How did you become the man you are today?
That's a great question. I think my story is very relatable to a lot of your listeners. I learned the hard way how to become successful through grinding and hustling, and then I realized, wait, there's a different way. So as I describe my life today, I like to start there to let people know how I live and that they can have it too. On average, I work 20 to 25 hours a week. I have an amazing career. I run a portfolio of businesses and I serve my private clients and my students to help them achieve the same. I started my first really successful business when I was 24 years old. I had not a clue what I was doing. I had no entrepreneurial experience. I only knew one thing. All I knew I wanted to do was serve. I just wanted to give. I just wanted to love. I wanted to serve people. That first really successful business that I started when I was 24 years old, I later sold when I was 31 years old. And along through that journey of approximately 7 years, I learned how to become successful personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, financially, and how to have my businesses serve me versus the other way around. Usually entrepreneurs are orbiting around their businesses because of the high gravity of being busy and serving other people. And I really learned how to do it differently. And I learned that the hard way. And that's what I teach people now, is to really be on the other side of that. How can you work less hours and make more income? And how can you run a business that is a sellable, valuable enterprise? It makes me really sad when I meet entrepreneurs where if they don't show up, they don't get paid. That lets me know they don't really have a business. They really have a glorified job. And I say that with love because I was in the same boat. I had an amazing lifestyle business in my 20s. I was a marketing consultant. I was traveling all over the world, giving seminars, writing books, helping thousands of people. But if I didn't show up, I didn't get paid. So I had a business that revolved around me. And then I learned how to undo that, because what got you here to this point won't get you to where you want to go, because that's how life works. Life is seasonal and cyclical, so we can embrace change in the different times in our life. Just like we were talking earlier about your listeners and where they're at currently. I think if they're feeling overwhelm, or if they're feeling like they're conflicted between making more money and serving more people, but they're neglecting themselves, their life, their relationships, this is a really good conversation for them to be a part of today.
100%. I think it's all, it all starts with the seed in our heads. And many times the seed is, my business is my baby. That's not true. Your fucking baby is your baby. Your business should be an entity that takes care of you, your needs, your family. And it should be an entity that stands on its own. It's the other way around.
You're so right. You are so right. I always tell my clients the whole reason you got into business, anyways, was to serve your communities, to love your family, take care of your kids, take care of yourself. So if you're not doing those things, if you're missing the soccer games, or if you're missing date nights, or if you're missing your gym sessions, now we've got the equation backwards. Now we're doing everything at all costs to succeed, but we're sacrificing the whole reason we began. What's really great about my story, and I think what many of your listeners will relate to, when I started off at 24 years old, I had not a clue. I had some education, not much, but I only knew one thing. All I wanted to do was serve and make the world a better place. So, for your listeners who are listening, I would love to bring them back to the whole reason you started was because of fill in the blank. The whole reason you started was freedom or changing the world or serving the world or providing for your family. And that's a great thing to revisit. And one of the ways that I help people revisit that is the beginning place is time. And you know what's great about time is the great equalizer. I've got 24 hours. You've got 24 hours. The world's greatest leaders have 24 hours. The garbage guy has 24 hours. Time is where we are all equal. It doesn't matter where you've come from financially. It doesn't matter where you've come from, your socioeconomic class. It doesn't matter what what part of the world you're from. Time is where we all can play on the same playing field because we're all working with the same resources of those 24 hours in a day.
100%. So what do you feel, time granted is the equalizer? What's the unequalizer?
Great question. My first thought as you asked that question was belief systems because we have all been told very conflicting things. And this is going to sound very polarizing, but I think it's a good thing. What people have been told about work and productivity has not been for their benefit. The reason why there's the hustle culture is that is benefiting someone else. The more that you work, the more productive you are, the more taxes that you pay. That is feeding a machine that is not us. We are human beings, not human doers, not human business workers, not human machines. We're human beings. And this all came to me in my late 20s. In my late 20s, I was embarking on a new journey in my life. I was 28 years old. I was preparing to become a competitive athlete with no experience as an athlete. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to step on stage. I wanted to accomplish this great, never done before thing. Some people run marathons. Some people do bungee jumping. I wanted to compete in amateur bodybuilding. And in order to do that, I had to dedicate 9.5 hours to train with my trainer. And I remember wondering, how am I going to get this time? I'm already working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week in my business. How am I going to come up with 9.5 hours to train? And that's when I realized here's this amazing thing that I want to do for myself, to push my body, to push my limits. And I'm unable to, or I think I'm unable to because of my business. And it was in that moment I decided that this is the decision I want to make. And so I went from 70 to 60, 60 to 50, 50 to 40, 40 to 30. And for years, I hung around 30, 35 hours. And now I work about 20, 25 hours, depending on the week. There's a season for everything. And that's because I no longer put my business and my enterprise as number one.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the episode. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're making more than 6 figures and you want to collapse time between where you are right now and your goals, you want to scale your business with a lot more freedom, a lot more fun, a lot more joy from this experience. And like I mentioned, do it faster. I have something that will help. Just like I did my clients. For example, Yoshwin was actually afraid to grow his $120 million a year business because he was afraid he was going to make a mistake that would cost him millions. I quickly got him unstuck and well on his way to doubling the business. Another example, Jessica, she was making 10K a month, but she was stressed out, overwhelmed, overworked, close to burnout, and she was actually kind of hating her business. She quickly scaled to 25K a month while actually working less and having more fun in the business. And I do it through my Warrior Shaman system. If you'd like to learn more about how this system can help you achieve your goals, like I mentioned, with more freedom, fun, and just less grind, less hustle, there's a link below where you can learn more. Now let's get back to the episode.
The thing I need to put number one is myself. And for those of y'all who are recoiling at the thought of that, I'll tell you you're not alone. When someone talks about put yourself first, all I want to do is serve and help people. All I want to do is impact communities, impact companies. The thought of putting myself first is really counterintuitive. But here's the truth. Without me and without you, there's no one that we can serve. Without you, there are no listeners. Without you, there are no clients. Without me, there
Exactly.
are not students. There are not companies. And when I put myself first as an athlete, that's what really helped me understand this is the secret. And what I did is then I started to rework the formula. Instead of hustling and grinding, what I started to realize was the less I do, the
The
more
more
I
the
make.
business grows. Yeah.
And how
And
cool is that?
funny enough, I had this conversation with my dad when I was in my 20s. I wasn't an entrepreneur back then. My dad was running his business for like 10 years or 15 years or something like that. And he was exhausted, wanted to sell the business, but not even properly sell it, just sell the equipment, and get a 9 to 5. And I intuitively had this conversation with him. I said, look, Dad, the business is not the issue. You are. Right? You're running around all over the place and getting exhausted. You telling me, I thought I switched this thing off. I'm sorry. There we go. We're keeping that, by the way, in the interview. So I said, Dad, look, you're telling me that you couldn't have found somebody to go pay the bills today? And it took my dad like a year for this insight to sink in. He finally hired somebody to take like 60-70% of take over of his work. And it's exactly like you said. When he was finally taking a vacation with my mother, every time he would leave, the business would make more money. Right? It's exactly like you mentioned. The less your job is to do less and to take care of the thing where the money came from, your heart, the things, your heart and your head. That's the money maker, not how much time you put in with these two hands.
You're so right. And your dad is such a good example of someone, and I'm just going to put myself in his shoes for a moment, that he's just wondering, how do I make sure everything is okay? How do I make sure everything continues to run? How do I plan for my future? And then taking a step back to the vacation with his wonderful wife probably seems scary. But the moment we do that, we're also putting distance. One of my favorite sayings is wherever you go, there you are, which really is a testament to if you're having a challenge in your relationships or your work or your clients, the one common denominator that we can control is you. And what's great about that is you can play the game of 100% responsibility. But even like your dad just thinking about selling the equipment, that's what really keeps me up at night. 80% of businesses will not sell. Over 80% of businesses are owner operated. They're too focused on the founder. They don't have correct systems and procedures. And many of them will just close their doors. Many of them will just simply stop. And one thing I do as an investor is, one, not only do I buy and sell businesses professionally, and this is what I love to do. I've done over 30 transactions in the past 5 years personally, but I also help entrepreneurs figure out how can you have a sellable, valuable enterprise that runs without you? How can you have an exit you've always dreamed of? How can you plan for your retirement and your children, the generations after you, instead of being stuck as an operator and realizing I'm trapped and I can't go anywhere? So coaches, consultants, physicians, attorneys, dentists, all of these different types of businesses where you're making great income and you have a great lifestyle, maybe if you're not working too much, but there's really no way for you to exit. That's where I help people understand there is a path moving forward and you can exit and you can become the part of the 20% of companies that do sell. And even though it's a smaller minority, there is a path to doing that. I've done it personally. I sold a business that I was the face of. It was my brand. And that business today is still running and carrying on my legacy, which is very important because not all of your entrepreneurs listening, yes, they may want to exit. Yes, they may want to have a great windfall of cash and have an amazing opportunity, but also they've built something. They have a legacy. They have babies of their clients, babies of their customers, and that's what we want to maintain. So just like your dad started to realize, okay, I can step away, one of the aha moments I would love your listeners to have is not only can you step away and take vacations, but also you can go to your next chapter. You can become your next level. For me, that was becoming an investor full time to buy and sell businesses. And that was how I leveraged myself and really realized I can exit, and here's how. And so I did it for myself years ago, and now I've done it again and again for all my clients so they can realize there is a path moving forward. But it all starts with this conversation. It all starts with realizing, just like your dad, you can take a vacation, you can step away, and you can make more.
A conversation I usually have with my clients is like, regardless whether you want to sell the business or not, you need to treat it as if you will. That's the only way you're going to create a freedom business. Treat it as if, like, would somebody buy it, right? Is it self-sustaining, right? If you don't want to slave away, just like Alex Hormozi and Gary Vee are encouraging the world to do, slave away for the rest of your life, with 12, 14-hour days and brag about it on social media, if that's not you, that's the first step. Start thinking about, okay, if I showed this thing to an investor, would they buy it? Would they, or, would it basically run without me? And that's your goal. Systemize it, optimize it, because the more you do that, the more time you have to be in your creative space, to tap into your heart and your mind, and you can even amplify it, take it further if you do want to sell.
Yes, you got it. And something that I think is very provocative to think about is, when people are working 12, 13, 14-hour days, one, there's a season for that. When I do seminar days, I'm on stage all day long. That's going to be a very long day, but that is what I call a sprint. And if you look at human behavior, when we were evolving, how humans behaved is they would hunt or they would gather and then they would rest. They would hunt, they would gather, and they would rest. Nowhere in our evolution were we spending 40 hours a week hunting. We were never spending 40 hours a week gathering. What would happen is there would be hunt, gather, rest. You can also find it in the animal kingdom. Most of the time, animals are not doing much. If you look at a tiger or a lion, most of the time they're lounging around, but then they hunt and then they rest. They hunt and they rest. So the way that I design my schedule is the 20, 25 hours a week that I'm working. It's very intense. It's teaching, speaking, serving, definitely serving my tribe, serving my stakeholders, serving my clients. And then there's rest. Now, my rest looks like working out. It looks like art. It looks like connecting with my family. So rest is not sitting around eating bonbons all day, but rest is restoration. How can you feed your spirit? When you woke up this morning, did you have a practice? When I woke up this morning, before I begin my interviews and my meetings, the first thing I do is connect with myself, and I remind myself, all I want to do is serve. This is not about me. It's not about my name. It's not about my brand. It's the ability to serve. And the way that I do that is sprint and rest, just like how I know our bodies were designed so I can work with our body, not against it. I don't think that working 12, 13, 14 hours is sustainable long term. Can you do it for a couple days a week? Sure. But what I would implore your audience to do is really think, am I living how nature designed me to? Because we don't see an evolution working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It's just not there. That has been taught to us. So when you asked that brilliant question earlier, well, if time is a great equalizer, what's a great unequalizer? It's belief systems. And the one thing I tell my clients and my students is, one, it's not your fault. Your belief systems were given to you by society, parents, family. But the good news is we can remove all blame because we're not going to be victims, but we can say, I'm old enough to think for myself, and I would like to change my belief. Instead of working a 50-hour work week, I'd like to work 30 or 35. Or instead of working 70 hours a week, I'd like to go down to 40. And you can determine what your belief system is. Just like you've done it for yourself and your clients, just like your dad did it, it's possible. And not only is it possible, but it's probable. All you have to do is choose.
Yeah, I was, funny enough, last week I was having a conversation with a client about the business owner mindset and working above the business. I said, look, here's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. You can never switch this business mind off. But that's a good thing, because when you're painting, when you're playing a video game, when you're watching a series. I got an insight from a series that I was watching, that I was binging, that helped me with my mindset and my business, right? You can never switch it off. But this non-work environment that you create for yourself allows you to tap into insights and creativity that you wouldn't normally have access to because you're too close to the forest to see, to the trees to see the forest, right? And yeah, that's kind of like, I feel like this perspective allows, there's nothing a business owner is more afraid of than doing nothing.
Yep.
But that's
And
it.
that itself is something to take a look at. I remember in my 20s, I read this book about prosperity and it shook me. In the book, it said, being overly productive is a form of laziness. And I remember being so offended by reading that. And I thought, me, lazy? And I'm serving
Right.
all these people, I'm writing all these books, I'm giving all these seminars. But as I
Yeah.
continued to read this book said, when you're being overproductive, there are certain things you're not looking at. I love that you use the example of changing a belief system as you're binging a show. One of my best investment decisions I ever did literally came from sitting on the couch watching a Netflix series. And I don't watch TV that often, but I try to force myself every now and then because the moment that your brain is fixating on something else, what happens is you're able to create mental space for ideas to come about. And truly, I was doing an investment deal with some of my real estate properties. No one could figure out a solution. My bankers couldn't figure it out. Me and my wife were talking about it. We couldn't figure it out. And I just said, look, give me 72 hours and I will have a solution. I didn't know how I was going to get it. I just needed time so I can make
Right.
this decision. And in that 72 hours, I was sitting on the couch watching a Netflix series and it came to me, oh, do this with the two properties, then do this with the loan, and then you'll have this as another home in your portfolio. And I made that decision. And I still have that home in my portfolio today. And that was because of giving myself mental space. So one time I was giving a seminar and one of my students in the front row asked, don't you ever feel lazy only working 20 to 25 hours a week? And I said, I'm really glad that you're asking that question because there's a lot of people that need to hear this. But I never feel lazy because my value isn't determined by time. My
Right.
value is determined by the outcome. How well did I serve my client in a coaching call? How well did I serve my audience in a seminar? How well did I serve my readers in the book? How well can I serve this podcast host with limited time? That is the value, not about time. But you've been taught otherwise, haven't you? In the beginning of your life, you were spending all this time in school, and your value was determined by how long did you study? How long were you in class? How long did you do your homework? You were a good student if you did 3 hours of homework. Then you got a job, and it was about working and being heroic and taking care of the business. And then it never at any point in time do you stop to realize, wait, how effective am I being? I remember telling one of my business partners yesterday, hey, coming off of our last seminar, I'm working a lot, which I love, and I'm happy to serve our audience. But the more I work, the less effective I become. So we need to make sure to realign for our next seminar, which makes total sense. And I said, I'm not complaining about hard work because I love serving people, but I also want to be the most effective server I can. And that most effective server makes sure that I'm going to be able to have balance and then be able to serve people at a very high level. And this is what I believe the greats of our industry know. When I look at people such as Richard Branson or Tony Robbins, they understand it because they take care of themselves. They have harmony in their life, not balance. I think balance is very arguable, but harmony. You look at how much Richard Branson plays and how much he values being playful and having his culture of his brands. Then you look at Tony Robbins and you see the type of life he's created with his philanthropy. Those to me are the shining examples of what you want to be like, of making sure you've got harmony in your life where you're serving people, you're making great income, you're making great impact, but also you have a life of your choosing. Because when's the last time you thought, the day that I'm living today, did I really want to do this? Did I really want to have 9 calls today? Did I really want to have 9 meetings with clients? Or did I get lost along the way? And the good news is you can just choose again. And you could say, you know what? I don't want to do 9 meetings. I'm going to go down to 5. Okay, I'm going to go down from 5 to 2. And I'm going to be highly effective, not for me, not so I can sit around and eat bonbons all day, but that I'm highly effective to serve people in the greatest way.
I'm loving this conversation so much, and I have a client in my mind that I'm gonna send this to immediately after it's published. He's gonna
Right.
love this so much. And you know what? Like energetically speaking, when you're being hyper productive, right, with the quotation marks, you're actually giving too much importance to a certain outcome. And whenever you're like obsessing over that outcome, energetically speaking, you're making it bigger than you.
Mm.
So stepping back, watching a Netflix show, doing nothing, right? And just doing something that's not work related will decrease the importance of that specific outcome, and you will be back to being bigger than it. It's always like whenever you're not looking for the car keys, when you lost them, when you stop looking for the car keys, that's when you find them.
Yep. Great example. I like that you mentioned that. One thing I'm working on in my own life right now is attachment and non attachment. The great Eastern religions and spiritualities of our planet really have put their flag in the ground with talking about non attachment. And you're so right. When you're looking for the car keys, you're so frantic looking for them, you're going to miss them. And then also, when you're so focused on a business or an outcome, you're too close to it. And so when you take time to paint or watch Netflix or go work out or go take a walk, what I believe happens is you start to remember who you are. Because even like when people introduce me, the way that my publicist wrote my bio years ago, when she said, Christopher is a heart centered entrepreneur, we did that deliberately because before I say I'm an entrepreneur, an investor, or a mentor, or a best selling author, I first want people to know who I am, and I want to remember that as well because it's easy to forget. But that's the practice. We forget and we remember. We fall asleep and we wake up. We forget and we remember. We fall asleep and we wake up. But can you take time to remember who you are and who you wanted to be? Because I'm telling you, when I meet my clients and they've got a business that's very successful, but they can't sell it or they can't get out of it or they can't go from operator to owner, they've done an amazing job. They've done the first challenge. They've built a very successful enterprise, but now they have to go to a different level of consciousness and thinking and behaviors and decisions to go to the next level. And that's the missing piece. We hear a lot of hustle culture. We hear a lot of put in the hours. There's one person that says, if you don't have the income you want, you don't deserve weekends and holidays. And I think that is so crazy. I think that type of messaging is so toxic because you're a human being, not a doer. And the longer you hustle and the longer you overproduce, the further away you're getting from who you were in the beginning. When I started
True.
at 24 years old and just wanted to love people, just wanted to serve, truly, I had no marketing training at all. I was not a professional marketer, and I became one of the most successful marketing consultants of my time. Not because I was a great marketer, I did become that later, but my intent to serve, to give, to love, that was the fuel in my engine.
Well, it's definitely still there, and it's definitely still powering the car quite well. Beautiful. What would you say is your vision for the business?
My vision is a world where, and this is big because I focus on solving really big problems. One of the things I'm here in Houston, Texas, which is 4 million people. It's the third or fourth largest city in the nation, and one of the things that I do to stay outside of myself is focusing on serving larger communities. How can I help the homelessness population in Houston? How can I help the local economy? How can I help more people get to school? How can I help more people have a year of savings in their bank account so they have freedom? What I view as my vision is a world where people are not defined by how much they have produced, they're defined by how much they give. One of the things I live by is something that my mentor taught me a very long time ago. Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything you want in life if you will just help enough people get what they want. And
Yeah.
to me, that's the fuel of why I do what I do. Now, that's also combined with having very successful enterprises. I'm able to work 20 to 25 hours a week because I've got resources of teams. I've got the ability to make different decisions. I have the ability to retire, and I choose not to. And that's why I'm so happy. I always say at my seminars, the reason why I'm so happy and have so much energy is I'm here because I want to. I'm not here hoping to get a paycheck or hoping to close you. I'm going to be fine regardless. You hiring me won't change my life. It'll change yours. And what's great about that is the vision of people enjoying who they are, remembering who they are, and why they started. Because for your listeners, and even like your dad, when he started his business, he had a vision, he had a dream, and the dream wasn't hustling. The dream wasn't working so much you can't take your wife on vacation. The dream was creating a product or a service that would change someone's world or change someone's business, and then being able to give to you, to his wife, etc. That was where he started, and then we just forget. And so hopefully this conversation is a great wake-up call for your entrepreneurs to realize, wait, this is why I started in the beginning. And let me take that action now. Let me take a time mastery course by Christopher Wick so I can learn how to master my time. Let me reach out to Christopher and learn how I can sell my business or grow my business to sell. And let that be the moment. Let me reach out to the host so I can be his client and I can have alignment and have the freedom business. That's what it's all about, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's usually a matter of getting. It's not even the ego. It's not the ego getting in the way. It's the programming. The programming we got. Like even the I have to figure everything out by myself. That's still something instilled from school. That's massively holding everyone back. So that being said, guys, absolutely connect with Christopher. If you've enjoyed his energy, I know I have. I could have this conversation for like hours and hours because you really step into flow, right? When you're talking about this. So if you felt that energy, if you felt something in this conversation, check out Christopher's work. I'll post the links in the description, either for his time mastery course or if you're looking to sell the business, absolutely get in touch with him and let him optimize things for you. Beautiful.
Thank you,
Thank you
my
so much
friend.
for joining us. Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode. And you know what? Something that's really, really frustrating for me is this thing that I keep hearing both from clients, both from people who regularly check out the content. They usually say, hey, I don't understand why this content is not getting hundreds of thousands, millions of views, downloads, because it's so freaking good. And I gotta be honest, instead of feeling happy about it, elated, I do feel kind of frustrated. I mean, like, why isn't it getting out there a lot more? So, you know what? If you'd like to help out with this goal, the best thing you can do if you're watching the video right now is give it a like, maybe share it with a friend, or if you're listening to the podcast and you're enjoying this show, giving the podcast a rating either on Apple Podcasts or wherever you are listening to your podcasts is a tremendous help. And if you do help out, I just want you to know that I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.